My next guest is an employer branding leader with over 15 years' experience in blending the lines between talent acquisition with marketing, recruiting talent for some of the most well known and not so well known employers in Europe and Australia. She's often searched for the most creative ways to attract and convert the best talent to the organization. Right now, as an employer brand professional, she's all about uncovering how people's motivations align with the organization's brand, values, and priorities, and how the brands can leverage this to win the talent battles. Agata, welcome to Talent Blazers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to jumping in. We're uncovering EVP, and you've been part of a number of EVPs throughout your 15 years of experience. The top of your head, how many do you think you've been part of?
Oh gosh, I feel like I've been taking part in EVP discovery in every single organization I worked for, and the list is long. The list is long.
Yeah, yeah. So, in your experience, what are some of the stigmas that exists when people are doing an EVP?
um, I feel like employer branding and maybe employee value proposition sounds a little bit daunting to some of the people that haven't touched it before. They feel like this must be this very official and proper process to get it done. While really, done is better than perfect. So it's better to start somewhere and move along with this and validate as you go, rather than spend months and months on projects that will never see the activation and never get to the market.
So, how do you manage the expectation then internally for people who, do want to dot the I's and cross the T's when they're starting off a project?
Mhm. Well, it's good to get people a little bit on a journey with what brand and marketing really is. Like the fact is that every organization has some kind of a brand, whether they like it or not. Maybe they just don't understand what it is, or hasn't been articulated from the employer perspective. But it still exists, whether or not there's been an official EVP project or employer brand that's been named. So really just getting more proactive and on the front foot for managing that perspectives and that perception is better and easier and helps to give a little bit more of the value for the project. Because yeah, I feel like, if you're thinking that you're starting from the scratch, unless you're a startup that's just been created, you're not. If you're an existing organization that has been hiring and has been present on the recruitment market for some time, you already have a brand and there's already some reputation that follows you. So you need to really manage that rather than think that you're a brand new tabula rasa, and that's something that you're creating from the scratch.
Okay, so that's a really interesting point because that's something that I'd like us to,
Mhm.
to dig a little bit deeper into that discovery process. So, what's known?
Mhm.
So, how do
Mhm.
you go about uncovering what's known within the business before you start conducting
Mhm.
those interviews? What's some advice?
Well, yeah, you just need, first of all, you need to know where you are and what's being told about you when you're not in a room or even when you're in the room. So, what are actually people already know you for and what their perception is. So, whether that's a desktop research and you're checking the forums or just getting a little bit of a word of mouth information from your present or past employees or even candidates, a little bit of a feedback from the recruitment process about what they think, what the assumptions are, is great. Before really jumping into a big, focus groups and research internally.
Mm,
I believe, the best employer brand, and EVP really blends two of the worlds. So what's authentic and also what's aspirational. Usually people know what they want to be. The aspirational is really easy because, that's coming from the CEO, that's coming from the leadership team. This is what we want to be. That's the goal. What's authentic, what it really is and the gap in between, how to blend it, that's where the real work starts. So yeah, it's easy to advertise, the ultimate goal and the dream, of the company. But if it's so, not true and not authentic at all, it will never resonate. It will never stick. So you're better off just, yeah, you need to validate. You need to be real about what it's really like, and then try to blend it into what is aspirational, where you want to be.
Okay, so let's think through an example of where that might apply. Say, for instance, um, there's a cohort of people that are regularly being recruited to an organization. Let's call it plus
Mhm,
3,000, and they're always going to be looking for, say, graduates, for instance, and they
mhm.
want to create an EVP around their graduate campaign. Where do you think someone should start in that discovery process? What are some of the considerations?
Yeah. Well, where I would start, and how I usually go about that process is really segmenting the audience and understanding who the audience is. So, really thinking about what kind of people are there and what kind of research do I have available to understand their drivers and their motivations, to switch roles, or how do they actually pick their next job and their employers, what's important to them, and then checking in what do we offer to actually, you know missing the word now, losing my English, guys. And yeah, checking what do we offer to answer to those drivers, right? So how our offering corresponds with what they're looking for on the market. And that can be either third party data, there's regular reports that are being published, or even speaking to people that you are about to interview as a sample, to yeah, representative sample, to understand how would they go about it, and what would be important for them.
Yeah.
Because yeah, your employer branding, your EVP is always this proposition versus what you're getting and what you're giving. So what do we want to get and what are we going to give? Yeah, it's a very famous Brian Adams book about give and get.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's an employer brand bible. So yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
All right, noted. I think Brian's going to be joining us on Talent Blazers, so I'll have to let him know that
Good
that
intro.
you've that you've mentioned that. Stay tuned for
Hmm.
another episode. Um, in terms of in terms of sort of the internal versus external perception, it sort of makes me think about the consumer brand clashing with your employer brand. Now, you've worked in a variety of companies, the pin-up of a number of organizations in Australia, Australia Post, RMIT, Deloitte. Um, let's think about it from a you're running an EVP on behalf of a bank. They can blend. There's a consumer brand there. How do you, in some instances, detach yourself from the consumer brand, or even leverage off the consumer brand in that discovery phase, so that you create that true, authentic employer brand?
Well, depending on what the consumer brand is, you can really leverage some of the perceptions. If it's you know, I it's a hard question. It's a hard question. I've never worked for a company that was producing any physical products, or for with the retail stores that people could associate my brands with. Australia Post probably was the easiest, but that's still more of a services company than anything else. RMIT is the same. Yeah, Deloitte is just professional services, so it's more of a B2B kind of thing. Um, the well-known brand in the market is a huge gift, but can also be a big obstacle when it comes to creating employer brand. Because, like you say, there's a big, well-known well-known brand will have its own perceptions and have very strong associations in people's head that they might not necessarily understand that I'm working for them. What does it mean to use the brand? What does it mean actually to work for a brand? Um, it's yeah, it's a funny one. It's not something that you can have one approach to. I guess I'll give you a very consulting answer, saying it depends. um, yeah, it has to be taken one on one, depending on the audiences and depending on the brand, what and the objective. So, what are you trying to achieve in given market or with the given audience?
Well, that's true. It does depend. I mean, if you're working for an organization that's a betting agency, or someone who's advocating for alcohol, it can be very quite challenging to
Hmm.
attract those types of people. So how do you go about humanizing that so that people can feel like it's a place that they can consider working?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to experience that?
Not in my career, but I've had friends that were working for a tobacco company, saying, "Oh, yeah, betting agencies that might not be considered the most ethical." And yeah, there's lots of sensitivities around this, obviously. So it might not be a cup of tea for everyone. So yeah, just making sure that you are articulating what the values are and what it is really to work for them, not necessarily contributing to a product itself might be an answer. But sometimes you might have a brand that will have a great product that you will want to feature, first and foremost, and that you can leverage off. So you don't have to actually explain to people what do you do and who you are, because I've been in that situation before as well, where I've been working for a brand that no one has ever heard of, and how many times can you explain that you're not a square, or that you're not a horse, is another challenge on its own too. So yeah, it all depends on your objective and what you're trying to achieve and type of people that you're trying to attract. You can really pick and choose and play, and you have all of this arsenal at your disposal that you can use in a very smart way to connect with the people that you want to connect with.
Yeah. So, just back onto the discovery process. So you've highlighted, what you do have, what the market requires, and then obviously that enables you to understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and how you can think through that. How how does that information really help you as you progress down the path of doing one-on-one meetings with
Mhm.
employees, or in the instance that we sort of suggested with the graduate program, maybe even interviewing previous graduates who've
Mhm.
joined the organization?
I would add also that you should always research what your competition is doing and what your competitors are saying, so that you can see, their positioning and how they play to that market. um, that you know that's all the information that you really get to help you articulate what you want to be. So this is where you are starting to blend that aspirational, what do you want to be known for, versus what actually you are actually known for, and how you're validating with the people that are internally right now. So if you're interviewing a person and you start using the words like employee value proposition, EVP, pillars, insights, they might not necessarily understand what you're trying to achieve, and it's not really resonating with them. But once you actually go with the language of, what makes you come here, why, what attracted you to be here, what surprised you, what was not something that you expected when we were working here, or what is the one thing that people get wrong when thinking about our brand. And if you interview a couple of people, you obviously get a little bit of a trends forming and a little bit of an insights. It's not it can be a big project where you engage an agency and multiple people to actually distill this to a very specific words. But if you're a talent acquisition professional that is trying to get something out in the market quickly and is trying to just test and learn and test a couple of ideas around, would this copy or this kind of tagline hook people more? You can just really test from a few different conversations, because you might get it right just by listening. So keeping your ear to the ground and actively listening and getting out of your own bias and your own perception about what you think, rather to what people are saying, is going to get you where you need to be.
And how many, like, say for instance, there's a cohort of people that are, let's call it 500 people within a team, and you're trying to, they might have a number of vacancies that they would like employer brand to make an impact on. If
Mhm.
there was a team size of say 500 people, how do you get the right sample size to be able to come up with the right narrative that forms part of your new EVP? Do you look at it from a percentage of, oh, there's 500 people, we need X percentage of people to join this project, to be interviewed or to be surveyed? Or are you looking at through a different sort of lens? When is enough enough?
I think what you need to look at always is the objective and who are you trying to attract and hire. So if you're looking to recruit, say, I don't know, say 50, will all those 50 be in the same location? Will all those 50 be at the same seniority level? Will all those 50 be of exact same skills? Because if you have, if there's a couple of locations, if you're looking to hit diversity targets, if you're looking to hire at with different tenures, different skill levels, you need to make sure that your offering will resonate to them all, which means that your sample and people that you're interview from your organization will need to be of representative sample as well. So yeah, I think it all depends on what are you trying to achieve, and you go from there. You don't start from just getting, I like Paul, so I'll speak with Paul today and I'll see what he has to offer. It's like, are we looking for someone like Paul really? And is it a priority?
Yeah. So clearly, diversity, equality, inclusion is at the front of your mind, and obviously that's quite important for most enterprise businesses in today's age. Um,
Mhm.
so how do you go about deciphering who is involved in the project, trying to meet all those objectives?
Well, that usually stems from business objectives, right, and from business priorities. So like you said, diversity inclusion is always at the front foot of everyone's agenda. Every organization is trying to be inclusive, but are they really? Are we really speaking the language that is including everyone, or not? So yeah, just education and making sure that you also work with people that are a little bit different than you, and you listen to their ideas and opinions, so that if you're yeah you need to be validating and checking your copy and information that you're putting out. How does it resonate and how does it read to someone that's different than you? So yeah, diversity is just the statistics. So how many people of certain makeup are making out your organization, but it's inclusion that you really want. So how can you make sure that whoever reads that message will feel like, yeah, I can belong there and I can feel good by being there? So, and that's very difficult to achieve, because sometimes there might be some people that you don't want there. So, how can you actually deter them from coming? So, yeah, um, it's a learned skill. But if you work with enough people in the organization, and like you validate with colleagues and managers, you can achieve that.
How long do you think the discovery process should actually go for when you're starting off building out an EVP? Is there a time frame or certain milestones that you're thinking that should be achieved?
Well, that again, depends. Consultative answer. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Um, no, I don't think well, I don't think it has to be a long process in general. It can be done in a very short period of time, but it depends on what are you trying to achieve. If you're looking to get something that is just off the ground, something that can be deployed by the recruitment team pretty quickly in terms of their conversations with candidates, and the messaging that goes out to in job ads, that can be turned around really in a very short period of time, and tested and validated. But if you're looking to do complete overhaul of the careers website and all of the outputs and collateral and everything else, create a completely new visual identity for your brand, obviously that is a much longer process that will involve way more people, graphic design, and all of those sorts. Testimonials, videos, like your sky is the limit. It can take forever. My idea is always to just do short sprints, iterate, deploy quickly, short bursts. Like, I'm very agile in terms of how I work, because yeah, done is better than perfect. So it doesn't help anyone if you're trying to do a big reveal, because employer brand is a living organism. It's changing with people that are coming and going to your organization. It's changing with the leadership changes. It's changing with I don't know, the economy changes, or corporate, how do I want to say this, industry, with the way the industry is going. So you need to be adapting, and you need to be responsive to what you're offering, and listening to what the market needs. So it's not something that you deploy once every 3 years and you're done because it's there. Yeah, people's motivations change. Like, how many of us were dreaming about hybrid working and working, environments before COVID, and now it's a given. Like, you don't really have to ask for this. This is not even something that you need to explicitly say that you offer, because it's a hygiene. So yeah, the times will change, your EVP will change, you have to be responsive. And yeah, if you're doing a big massive project, big milestones until a big reveal, you're losing already, because your competition is there,
Yeah.
deploying quicker.
Well, on that note, I do really appreciate you passing on the information around discovery and unpacking EVP. You've written a really nice blog as well on uncovering the stigma, and we'll attach that as part of this Talent Blazer episodes for people to dig a little bit deeper. But thanks so much for joining us on Talent Blazers.
Thank you. I appreciate your time as well.